Hello, hello. Welcome to the Enquiry podcast. This is a show that helps you to influence your reality to the greatest capacity in order to be able to use your life as the medicine that it is, to be able to know how to read the signposts and follow the breadcrumbs in order to express the fullness of who you are and what you're actually here for. I'm your host, Nerida Mills. I am a master psychosomatic practitioner, coach and facilitator, and it is my absolute pleasure to have you here. Welcome on board and let's get started. Hello, beautiful humans. I am back. It is amazing to have you here yet again. Now, as promised in the last episode, I want to talk to you about a model of human behavior that fundamentally changed the way that I look at my responsibility or my ability to respond. I learned this model of behavior from a lady called Remi Pearson. She founded and runs a training organisation called the Coaching Institute in Melbourne, Australia. And she's a phenomenal coach. The way that she sees just the intricacies of expression and can call them out with absolute precision is really, really incredible. So I really appreciate the work that she's done, and I appreciate this model. So credit where credit is due. So the 4 R's are basically a model that dictates the development or growth of an individual through any stage of life. So the most simplest way to look at it is by looking at the development of a human being from baby through to elder. So if we look at when a baby comes into the world, the first expression of that baby, or the first dynamic that baby is in, is a state of reliance, right? It's reliant on the people around it to keep it alive, to keep it nourished, to keep it warm, and to touch it and to keep it loved. And even as that baby grows, it's still reliant in the toddler phase. It's still reliant on the adults around it to keep it alive, because I don't know about you, I've had kids, toddlers are kamikaze pilots. They're just just aiming to kill themselves left, right and center. So they're really reliant on the people around them to keep them safe. And then what happens is that child grows, and it goes through a couple of little mini stages, but essentially it goes into becoming a teenager. And the teenager stage is, I think, quite misunderstood, but a very, very important stage for human development. And what is most characterized by a teenager is rebellion. And so what happens in the teenage stage is a somewhat of a separation from those that I have been reliant on, right? So all of a sudden, the parent who that child looked up to as a 6-year-old, 7-year-old, 8-year-old with complete adoration, complete love in their eyes, complete, mummy, I want to marry you, I want to live with you for the rest of my life, to all of a sudden, you're like the worst human in the world, you've never done anything for them, and they're never going to be anything like you. So there is this push that happens through teenage years that comes from a fundamental build of righteousness. I know it can be done better, which is really important. So we go through this rebellion stage. Now, as humans develop, we age and we go into our 20s. Now, for most people, it's actually around about the age of 30 where we move out of our rebellion. So the rebellion really does linger through the 20s, and that, it's characterized by that righteousness. I know, you can't tell me, which is, again, it's a really important stage. A lot of change makers are quite righteous in their belief set. So it's not good or bad, right or wrong. It's just a stage of development. But what happens around 30 is you look back and you're like, holy shit, I can't deny that I'm an adult anymore. And all of my righteousness hasn't necessarily gotten me the results that I'm looking for. So now I don't really care about being right so much anymore. Now I just want to get the results that I want in my life. And so we move into the next stage, which is the results. And what we're looking for in our results stage of expression is really what are the things, what are the hacks, what are the steps, what are the strategies in order to get X, Y, and Z outcome. And so as often as possible, we're actually outcome-driven or results-driven in that period of time. Now, around sort of 55, 60, some people, not all people, move into a state of realization. And what happens in realization is that they've really kind of, quote unquote, made it. And they want to help the next generation to not have to experience so much pain. And so they dedicate the rest of their life to giving back, to lifting up, to helping guide, right, to education. And that happens in that realization stage. So this is a bottom-up model. We start at the bottom and we move our way up. Now, the same thing happens when we are learning a new skill, right? So when we go into a classroom of any form, say if I want to go and learn how to do property development, for example, I'm going to go and I'm going to find someone who's great at property development, and I'm going to go into that classroom. Now, when I go into that classroom, I am reliant on the teacher to give me the information that I need in order to get started, because that's why I'm there. So I'm in a reliant stage. Now, generally in a learning environment, it can happen quite quickly that we move into our rebellion and we're like, oh yeah, that's all good and well, but I reckon I can do it better. And so before we've actually even tried anything, we adjust or tweak the strategy that we're being taught or the steps that we're being told to take. And this is where a lot of people go wrong in learning new skills, especially as adults, because, if I was to give you $1 million piece of art and say, all you got to do is paint this artwork exactly like this, and you got $1 million piece of art, I can guarantee you're going to go up there, you're going to try and change the colors, you're going to try and adjust the curvature of the flower or whatever it is, right? But what is actually required is literally exactly the same thing. You want to mirror that $1 million piece of art, but we don't do that. We go into these situations and we want to put our own splash on it, because, that's we're human beings, that's what we do. Now, at some point through the learning experience, maybe in the application of your own version of, you realize that you don't know everything and that you've missed something, and you'll either do one of two things. You'll either blame the instructor and go back into reliance and go and learn off someone else, or you'll go, okay, maybe actually they had it right and I'm going to do exactly what they told me to do and see how that goes. And then you'll follow the process. Now, at some stage, if and when you have your own experience of property development and you've done it enough times, maybe then you move into the stage of realization where you start teaching other people, right? So this is how we do it through education. Now, in relationships, it's very interesting because a lot of people have been demonstrated relationship dynamics based on a reliant style of relating. And what I mean by that is that we are reliant on the people around us in order for us to play a certain role within that relationship. So, and this was definitely my last relationship, whereby I was the rescuer, definitely. He victimized himself, and I saw him as broken, and so I victimized him. And then, so my role in that relationship in my head was I wanted to show him how worthy he was of love. I wanted to be the person who loved him so much that he finally got what an incredible person that he was, and he could be all of who he was, because I saw his quote unquote potential. And that's a really interesting word when you see someone's potential. Podcast for another day. But so within the reliance style of relating, what you have is the drama cycle. And the drama cycle is made up of 3 roles. You've got the aggressor, you've got the victim, and you've got the rescuer. So aggressor, victim, rescuer. And then what will happen is that you will oscillate and tick-tock between each of those roles. So, for example, in my last relationship, we could say that my ex could be somewhat aggressive. He was Italian, very noisy, very, arms everywhere and whatever, and just as stubborn as I was, but in a different way. And so, outwardly, if you looked out from the outside of the relationship, you could see, he could be aggressive. But the subtlety of my aggression was that I was passive aggressive. And mate, I was fucking nailed that shit. You know what I mean? So passive aggression is just as aggressive aggression. It's still a form of aggression. And so I was the aggressor, he was the aggressor. I was a victim to his aggression. He was a victim to my emasculation. I was rescuing him because, he needed to be saved because he was so broken. And he was rescuing me from my own insanity and all of the flaws that he would point out that I had all of the time, right? And so we were in this cycle of relating. And then what would happen, and what often happens in that drama cycle, is that at some point or another, one or both parties go, fuck this shit. I don't have to do this anymore. I'm leaving. And leaves for a couple of hours, couple of days, couple of months. And again, at this rebellion point, it is a transformation, right? So the rebellion point is the point of transformation. And we have an opportunity to either move forward into results or to move back into reliance. And what will often happen in that drama cycle of relating is that we'll leave, we'll remember all of the good things that we get from the relationship and how much we love that person and all of the stories that keep us there. I'm not good enough. Nobody else is going to love you, blah, 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 blah. And we go back to the same relationship. But at the point in which I heard this model, I had already separated with the kid's dad, and we were communicating, but it was really, really horrible communication. So he lived interstate now, and every time we would get on the phone, it would end in an argument, it would end in a yelling match. He would spend very little time talking to the kids, and it just felt like it was horrible. It was really, really horrible. And so I came across this model through this course that I did with the Coaching Institute. And after learning this model, I literally sat in the bath with a bottle of wine and, drowned my sorrows for an evening, because I had to recognize that the way I was relating in that dynamic was perpetuating the drama cycle. Even though we weren't together anymore, I was still perpetuating the same cycle. I was still playing the same game with him. The dynamic had not shifted. And so my ability to respond came from the question of, okay, well, what result do you actually want? And so for me, the result that I really wanted in that moment was I needed to be able to communicate with him around the kids. I needed him to have a space to talk to the kids without our drama getting in the way, because it was important for them. And I didn't want to feel like shit all the time, right? So what we did is I sent him an email and just said, our communication, our communication is now going to be via email. If you call, I'll put you onto the kids. I'm not going to answer the phone, and I'm not going to speak to you on the phone. And that's how we communicated for quite a number of years after. Now, it wasn't my ideal, because my ideal would have been that we could have related to each other like really mature adult human beings and had a really amazing, beautiful relationship even after our separation and all of this sort of stuff. It wasn't my ideal. But my ideal wasn't working. The more that I tried to hold on to my ideal, the more I was creating that which I didn't want, which was this really shitty experience. And so I had to get really honest with the situation at hand. What is the reality of the situation at hand? What do I actually want? And given the situation at hand and what do I want, what is required? And so this is really this space here. What is the actual situation? What do I actually want and what is required? This is my ability to respond now. Now we're talking about actual responsibility. This is how you reclaim your power and start getting better results. Okay, I'm going to leave it there with you guys today. I hope you're having an amazing day, and I will speak to you all soon. So that's it from us. Thank you so much for joining me for this episode. I would like to really acknowledge you for spending the time to explore what creates your reality and how you can influence it best. If you have absolutely loved this episode and the ones before it, then I highly encourage that you jump onto my newsletter list. You'll be able to find the details of that in the show notes. You can also follow me on Facebook or Instagram at Narrator Mills. Really, really, really looking forward to speaking with you again soon. If you have any comments, insights, feedback, anything that you would like to share from these episodes, please feel free to email me at info@narratormills.com. Until next time.